Ever feel like your taxes are a bit much? Well, take a deep breath, because today we're diving into a history of taxation so bizarre, it'll make your current tax bill look like a walk in the park. Throughout history, governments have gotten incredibly creative when they needed to raise money. And these strange taxes aren't just historical footnotes. They're fascinating windows into what societies valued, what they feared, and the wild lengths they would go to in order to fill their treasuries. We've all heard whispers of things like a salt tax or a window tax, but the reality is stranger and more fascinating than you can imagine. From paying for the privilege of having a beard to receiving your salary and seasoning, get ready to explore the weirdest taxes in human history. Let's start in 18th century England, a time of grand architecture and bricked-up windows. If you were to walk through London or Edinburgh back then, you'd see something peculiar. Stately homes with some of their windows mysteriously filled in with bricks. This wasn't a new architectural trend, it was tax evasion. In 1696, the English government introduced the infamous window tax. The logic was simple, if a bit flawed. The more windows you had, the wealthier you must be, and therefore, the more tax you could afford to pay. It was essentially an early form of property tax, but with a very specific target. It was also easier for tax collectors to count windows from the street than to go inside and assess the value of someone else's property. The tax started on houses with more than 6 windows, and the rate increased with the number of windows. What the government didn't fully anticipate was human ingenuity and the desire to save a few shillings. People immediately started bricking up their windows to lower their tax liability. Brand new buildings were even designed with fewer windows from the start. You can still see the ghostly outlines of these taxed-out windows on historic buildings across the UK today. But this had serious and tragic social consequences. The tax wasn't just on the wealthy. It hit landlords of tenement buildings, who, in turn, passed the cost on to their poor tenants, or simply bricked up the windows in their apartments. This plunged the poorest parts of the cities into darkness. The lack of light and fresh air had a devastating impact on public health. Doctors at the time began to protest, arguing that the tax was essentially a tax on light and air. They linked the dark, poorly ventilated living conditions directly to the spread of diseases like cholera, smallpox, and typhus, which thrived in such environments. It became a public health crisis. The phrase daylight robbery is even believed by some to have originated from the public's outrage over this tax. Despite the growing opposition and the clear negative effects, the window tax was surprisingly persistent. It lasted for over 150 years, only being repealed in 1851 after decades of campaigning by doctors, social reformers, and a public that was simply fed up with living in the dark. It's a powerful example of how a seemingly logical tax can have disastrous, unforeseen consequences for society. Now, let's travel east to Russia at the turn of the 18th century. Under the rule of one of history's most formidable and eccentric leaders, Peter the Great. Peter was a man on a mission. After a grand tour of Western Europe, he became obsessed with modernizing Russia, which he saw as backward and stuck in old traditions. He wanted to transform everything, from the military and government to the very appearance of his people. And one of his biggest pet peeves? Beards. In Western Europe, the elite were clean-shaven. But in Russia, a long, thick beard was a deeply ingrained symbol of manhood, religious piety in the Orthodox Church, and tradition. Peter saw these beards as a symbol of everything old-fashioned he wanted to eliminate. So what did he do? Introduce the beard tax in 1698. If you wanted to keep your beloved facial hair, you had to pay up. The tax wasn't cheap either. The amount varied based on your social status. Wealthy merchants had to pay a hefty sum, while peasants paid a much smaller fee upon entering a city. To prove you had paid the tax, you were given a special beard token. These were small copper coins, almost like a medal that you had to carry with you at all times. One side of the token showed a beard and mustache, and the other side bore the inscription, "The tax has been paid." If you were caught with a beard but without your token, the authorities could, and often would, publicly and forcibly shave you on the spot. It was a form of public humiliation designed to enforce the Tsar's will. This wasn't just about fashion. For Peter, it was a direct assault on the old guard and a way to physically stamp his vision of a new, modern, westernized Russia onto the faces of his subjects. Let's wind the clock back even further, to the mighty Roman Empire. Imagine being a Roman legionary, marching for miles under a hot sun, building fortifications, and fighting for the glory of Rome. When payday comes, what do you expect? A pouch full of coins? Sometimes. But at other times, you might have been paid in something you probably sprinkle on your food today: salt. That's right. Salt was so valuable in the ancient world that it was used as a form of currency. The Latin word for salt is sal, and the payment Roman soldiers received was called a salarium. Sound familiar? That's the root of our modern word salary. So why was salt worth its weight in? Well, salt. Before refrigeration, salt was the key to food preservation. It was absolutely essential for curing meat and fish, allowing armies to carry provisions on long campaigns and helping societies survive long winters. It wasn't just a seasoning, it was a strategic resource, as critical to an empire as oil is today. Controlling the salt trade meant controlling the food supply. The famous Roman roads, like the Via Salaria or Salt Road, were built to transport salt from the coastal salt pans to the capital. So when a Roman soldier received his salarium, he was getting a precious commodity that could be used to preserve his own food or be traded for other goods. It's also where the expression "not worth his salt" comes from, implying a soldier who wasn't competent enough to deserve his precious payment of salt. It's a fascinating reminder that the things we take for granted today were once the foundations of empires and the very definition of wealth. From bricked-up windows in England to forcibly shaven chins in Russia and soldiers paid in seasoning, these bizarre taxes do more than just make for strange historical trivia. They are a powerful lens through which we can view the past. The window tax shows us a society grappling with inequality and the dawning awareness of public health. The beard tax reveals the forceful vision of a single ruler determined to drag his nation into a new era, whether it wanted to go or not. And the Roman salt salary highlights what was truly essential for survival and power in the ancient world. They show us what governments prioritized, how they exerted control, and how ordinary people creatively, sometimes desperately, responded. So the next time you look at a window, season your food, or even look in the mirror, maybe you'll think a little differently about the long, strange history of taxes. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the weird side of history, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.